Boy. Been doing a lot of researching, man. Let's see if we can get a little bit up. Tonight we're gonna deal with the whole myth and the fact of Jesus, man. Gonna put this out there.
While at work, I had a severe
Don't
foot
put this shit
injury.
out there.
I was sideswiped by a car.
I'm gonna be live.
Involved in a serious conflict.
3 different places
Got
right
to an
now.
age where we decided to put her in a nursing home.
First words out of her mouth, they dropped me. I went to see an attorney, and he recommended me going to the
3
Higgins
different
firm.
places at one
My
time.
lawyer referred me to the Higgins firm.
That's why I chose the Higgins firm.
That's why I chose the Higgins
That's why I
firm.
said
People
this
who
song.
know. It's trill. Dog record. You gotta live it up. That shit don't lie. You gotta live it up.
Smoke, be right. Going live over here too, so.
If you born on this world, you already fucked. And if you black, then your struggle can't be rough enough. It ain't no love, they just tell you to toughen up. Hustle and get it up. Since you alive, you gotta live it up. If you born on this world and you already fucked. And if you black, then your struggle can't be rough enough. It ain't no love, they just tell you to toughen up. Hustle and get it up. Since you alive, you gotta live it up. They say that if you born in this world covered in melanin, and you were cursed from birth with low intelligence, and you were only meant to slave and work for free. You just another motherfucker in a cotton field, suffering from cognitive dissonance due to politics. Stuck in poverty, never seeing no way out of it. Beating for progress, hustling to get it in. And all the moves that you making, you still standing still. The media damaging, governors pandering, punting your freedom for dollars and they just cash it in. They roll the dice with your life, they just gambling. National Guard now in charge, yeah, they with FEMA them. Be careful of the food America feeding them. Systematic ignorance to ensure that you never win. But if you born and you die, you chosen
What's
to live.
up, yeah?
Treat your cares like the blunt, let it blow in the wind. If you born on this world and you already fucked. And if you black, then your struggle
Some
can't
smoke
be
and learn.
fucked.
You
It
on
ain't
the
no
book,
good,
too.
they just tell you to toughen up, hustle and get it up. Since you alive, you gotta live it up. If you born on this world and you already fucked. And if you black, then your struggle can't be rough enough.
Right.
It ain't no love, they just tell you to toughen up.
Gonna be on this bitch for a cooler minute, though.
They say that if you born in this world and you got red skin, then you extinct and you can possibly be an Indian, Aboriginal, Native, walking on flat land. Told you that you were African, now you ain't got land. It's for the next generation who don't understand. It's for the ones with the mind that can comprehend. Black
That's cool. We'll get back to the jam. I gotta send this out real quick. Yeah, man, truth. So we're gonna get into it and see what's real. We're gonna get to the facts and the truths. Y'all in my fucking business, y'all some hoes. Man, let's see what's going on with the live over here. I'm live in more than one place right now. Where we at? But if you born, you chosen to live. this shit's getting this shit cracking on more than one. But it's all good. What's up with you, man? What's up with you? Mary Jane, you at work? What you doing? I'm live on my YouTube too. Act like you know me, man. Good front down here. What? Boy, fuck y'all. What is y'all talking about?
Ones with the mind that can comprehend. Black lives matter, but will you help your fellow man? Stop fronting on the internet and start collecting bands. Join hands and business with your money for your young kids. And for the young boys who already got kids, think they mind fuck.
You know what? Fuck them. I don't know what they got going on. But I ain't worried. Let me run that shit back so get my smoke out.
Get it up since you alive.
What they got going on?
If you born on this word and you already fucked. And if you black, then your struggle can't be rough enough. It ain't no love, they just tell you to toughen up. Hustle and get it up since you alive. Gotta live it up. They say that if you're born in this world and you got red skin, then you extinct and you can possibly be a
I'm on Facebook Live right now. I'm on YouTube Live right now. All this shit at one time. And I'm on Tag Live right now. Facebook hating like some hoes. Facebook be playing hating like some hoes. That's how I feel. I don't think there's smoke. I'm doing a lick. What she say, oh wow for? Facebook be playing hating like some hoes. Facebook been playing hating like some hoes. That's all, you know. But I'm finna get on. I'm live right now on YouTube.
Hustle and get it up. Since you alive, gotta live it up. If you born on this word and you already fucked. And if you black, then your struggle can't be rough enough. It ain't no good, they just tell you to toughen up.
Yeah, man, we live on 3-4 different places right now. They won't even let the G do his thing. Real hoes. Bitch, I gotta way around there. Y'all some real hoes for that. I can't show shit to the 31st.
With our flexible plan, only
I don't know what the fuck. I don't even know. But bitch, what y'all don't know is I don't use just one fucking account anyway, you goofy motherfuckers. Silly rabbit. I don't know why this song don't never play right. I just want to hear the lyrics. Being tagged, that goofy ass done kicked me out. I was in here turned, cracking jokes.
Smoking on the billy, the good stealing. This is not a fantasy, this is how we live it. Walking the ride, nigga, I'm gon' get it. Ain't nothing like the billy, nigga, when the top chillin'. Smoking on the stogie, coffee got me choking. Bust open this Swiss sweet, gon' crack it open, sour patch. Got me zoning, blowing smoke it till tomorrow. Why y'all worried about Corona? I'm opening up Corona bottles, living like it's already 2025.
Yeah.
Futuristic killing George Jetson is alive.
Okay.
Future destination verified. Coordinates for right before y'all caught the T-vibe.
Living off the vibe that was sent into the hive.
Right before your eyes, knowledge and ignorance collide. They say that the zombies only die from headshots. Prison rebellions, cause they won't let the cage man out. Skynet uploaded on your smartphone. clouds. Couple of years after the Terminators arrived, I hustle and I grind to get my piece of the pie. They say y'all looking for the answers. Access has been denied, but I'm smoking on the killing. Keep the good spilling. This is not a fantasy. This is how we live it. Walking the ride, nigga, I'm gon' get it. Ain't nothing like the feeling, nigga, when the top chillin'.
Hold up, Katie. Give me a second.
Keep the good spilling. This is not a fantasy. This is how we live it. Walking the ride, nigga, I'm gon' get it. Ain't nothing like the feeling, nigga, when the top chillin'. Yeah. Drill. Dog records. Renegade vibe life. Bitch, I'm 900 for life. I'm looking for the access has been denied. Right before all the Terminators arrive. Are you niggas still alive? Are you niggas still alive? Yeah.
Well, I'm busting up a Philly. Nothing like when the top chillin'. Nothing like when the top chillin'. Man, it's just something about the vibration come out for that little hoe right there, man. They just do it for me. You feel what I'm saying? Caramel cakes. What's up?
It's Trill. Life of a motherfucking G.
Oh, we're gonna get into it after this one. Yeah. YouTube Pt.1. Go to my YouTube, subscribe, like, check out my reactions, lectures. We got a bunch of cool stuff going on that motherfucker, you know what I'm saying? Certified lectures, DJ Pool, DJing, my music videos. I'm a Billboard charting artist and producer. Yeah.
Lay back with ease, stay with the strap, cause you gon' need it. Vultures looking for weaknesses, swarm on you when they see it. In this jungle we live, Mortal Kombat fatally ends. Fakers and friends, the niggas who play it to win. Saying they living a life of seeing all of their clips extend. Whole simplicity kids sticking a syringe in their skin. They say they serve and protect, they neglect and offend. Chances is slim, they
Dance with the devil just to make it. Walk with me, let me show you the life of a motherfucking G. Life of a motherfucking G.
Well, some live, some die.
Caskets closed and mamas crying. Don't nobody hear no why. It's the life of a motherfucking G. The hoe told me I can't post that. You motherfuckers crazy.
Now dust to dust, ash covers the grass. That's the last time you saw them. Headstones covers the home of the dearly departed. The clock started as soon as you were conceived. From the moment you started to breathe, you were appointed to lead the life you lead. From the baby bottles to bags of weed. Pour up some drink and use your brain. Don't believe what you see, only half of what you heard. Watch for what you believe. Extensive study for love and knowledge is that's what you gon' need. They got tricks up they sleeve. Niggas slick and be. They overcome with greed, set up traps for a fee. Whack a nigga
For a status, hopes of 1,000 P's. They don't have the ambition to come up with 100,000 G's.
Your main squeeze gotta be bleak cause she fucking your enemy.
The top dog might tell the people
When you stashing your weed,
somewhere the money and cocaine and cop a plea agreement. The crooked shit that take place in the life of a motherfucking G. Life of a motherfucking G. A fucking G.
Some live, some die, caskets closed,
Your
and
mama's
mama's crying.
Don't nobody hear nobody.
It's the life of a motherfucking G. Trill nigga. That's right. Blue Dog motherfucking records. No limit forever Easter, bitch. Know what it is.
Oh, they don't like when I talk about this other
900,
stuff.
nigga. I'm 900.
Well, fuck y'all.
Renegade
What
my
y'all do?
outlaw.
I'm still gonna post this shit.
South G-Funk, Delta Rap Blues. Well, some live, some die, guess it's close to mama's cry. On the front row, all black, and they don't know why, dog. Make over a motherfucking G. Gangsta bitch, like another motherfucking PK on my beat.
Everybody. Oh, they got the boy Beanie Siegel on there. Gonna get into some shit. Why they hating? If they say player, why you hating? Alright, man, let's get into it. It's really a personal thing for me anyway. It really ain't like my music. You feel what I'm saying? So it's more personal, my teachings, man. So I really want whoever come. Of course, I push them and promote them, and I'm gonna, it's gonna blow up in a little second. For real. Serious little second. But I really, it's really a real personal thing for me. My music, I share that with the world. It's my art. This is my art too, but it's just a little more sacred. Not to say my music ain't. Let's get into this. So Jesus, man, myth, legend, fact, what is it? Is it something that they made up? What's for real? What's the real deal? We finna figure it out. Now, I figured this is what I'm gonna be doing. I created these playlists so that y'all can always go back and watch these videos too. Yourself. Let me see something real quick. So yeah, that's why I did that. You can always go back. I'm on Tag right now, Facebook and YouTube too. You can always go back and check them out yourself. So I just want to take a minute and see y'all while y'all see me, and we finna go and get to this shit. So it's not a myth. It's definitely factual. You know what I'm saying? What up, G? What up? You good? Yeah, it was Jesus was definitely a real person. But we're gonna get into all of everything. Well, it's probably gonna be broke down to a couple parts, man, because it get deep. So we're gonna go and get started. So a lot of people know new mixtape. Yeah, we need to get on that. Real shit. I know I ain't hit you up about it, and that's my fault. Real shit. I just started doing these little teachings and shit. And I'm getting the clothing line moving, and the weed and shit, the little weed company, illegal weed company, popping and shit. But I sure ain't forget about this music thing we got going on. You good though, man? Happy, you know what I'm saying? No, you know what I'm saying? You know, you one of the brothers there, man. Right. Yeah, G. Good, man. Good, man. Alright, so we're gonna get into it. Boom.
When you join IHOP's new rewards program, the International Bank of Pancakes, and start stacking pan coins toward free food, you get a smile on your plate. Download the app and join the rewards program today.
Charlie, bad men are after us. Burn it all down.
Right. Thanks. I seen them pictures, man. Matter of fact, not only did I see them pictures, I took one of them, bruh. I took one of them and saved it, because I'm going to make a CD cover for you, man, with one of them. I seen that mug, I said, oh, man, that's memory right there. That's memory. That's memory right there. Yeah,
the Council of Nicea was the first ecumenical council of the Christian Church. What this means is that bishops from the entire known world of Christianity came together for the first time to discuss major issues affecting the faith. At this point in history, the Christian world consisted mostly of Southern Europe, Northern Africa, and the Middle East. Still, that's a lot of bearded dudes in pointy hats. The council was convened in 325 CE by Emperor Constantine the Great, generally regarded as the first Christian Roman emperor. He held a council in the ancient city of Nicea. While not literally every bishop in the world was actually present, tradition holds that 318 attended, largely representing the eastern portion of the church. Notably absent was Pope Sylvester I, who did at least send a few representatives on his behalf. Constantine called the council together in order to address issues of division within the church. He hoped to reestablish peace religiously, as he had just done politically by defeating his imperial rival Licinius. Before diving into what the Council of Nicea was, let's take a look at what it definitely wasn't. A popular and oft-repeated myth is that Constantine and the Church Fathers decided which books would become biblical canon and which books wouldn't make the cut. This myth got a huge boost when Dan Brown repeated this myth in his wildly popular but historically dubious bestseller, The Vinci Code, which, if we're being honest, spent a lot of time selling
nice
people
pictures,
on a lot
man.
of fake ideas.
But
However, this particular myth
man,
predates Brown's novel
hard,
by centuries. The 18th century French satirist Voltaire quipped that the bishops picked the books of the Bible by placing all of the candidate texts on a table and seeing which ones fell off. The fact is that there is no evidence whatsoever to say there was any single council at which the church leaders decided what was real and what was fake. Rather, the canonization of the New Testament was a... Hold up.
This nigga lying. First off, this nigga here lying. Yeah, it's record that they got together and they decided what was gonna be in there, what wasn't gonna be in there. So I mean, yeah, that's the same thing. I mean, you can say it in a cool way, you know. But shit, it's gonna be, it's the facts remain.
Centuries-long process of debate and analysis. Over time, certain texts were elevated because they were believed to be written by the disciples of Jesus for the correct age.
Elevated. Them cool words again.
Contained proper orthodoxy. Even today, the Protestant, Catholic, Greek Orthodox, and Ethiopian Orthodox churches don't agree on which books are canon. So the idea that this was decided in 325 is preposterous. That brings us back to what the Council of Nicea was actually about. A number of different issues were discussed at the meeting. The primary concern, though, and the main cause of the division within the church, was the issue of a priest named Arius of Alexandria, especially regarding the increasing popularity of his ideas among Christians in Alexandria and beyond. Arius espoused a theological doctrine that was extremely troubling to the more orthodox priests and bishops at the council. His beliefs, which had come to be known as Arianism, was an attempt to rationalize the relationship between God the Father and Jesus the Son. If Jesus is the Son of God, that means God came first. A pretty logical conclusion, you would think, but standard dogma makes things a little more complex. The idea of Jesus being God's Son implies that there existed well, not really a time, because God predates the concept of time, but rather a division of persons between God and the Son. And a circumstance where God existed before his Son means that Jesus is not eternal. Arius' belief was that if Jesus was born, only God the Father exists without...
Wait a minute. Nigga sound stupid. First off, you know, everything ain't as easily... what's up, Shay? Yeah, go to YouTube Pt.1 and fuck with me over there too. That's where I'm at right now. Doing my video reactions, lectures, stuff like that. I'm gonna favorite you on here though. Y'all on Facebook right now too, live. We on Facebook live, tag, and on YouTube on the other phone. So, yeah. Hopefully you doing good. Got my boy Pooh in this thing over on the YouTube doing his thing. And we talking about Jesus, man. Is it a myth? Is it real? Is it fiction? Is it fact? Well, we know that it's real because there's historical fact behind it. But we gonna break down everything and see what everybody talking about.
Origin. This goes against the Gospel of John, which identifies Jesus as the Word, who was with God in the beginning and was God. To most bishops, this was heresy and could not stand it. The distinction between Jesus being begotten by God rather than being made by God might seem like an extremely minor nitpick from a modern perspective.
Oh, you
However,
appreciate
to
the
the
hearts
early
too.
church, which had only just gained legitimacy after centuries of persecution, nailing this one down was incredibly important. Arianism is a Unitarian doctrine in the sense that it focuses on the uniqueness of God at the expense of the core Orthodox doctrine of the Trinity, in which God is expressed as three distinct but individual aspects. For Arius, the fact that Jesus had to be created meant that he must be subordinated to God the Father. To a mainstream Christian at the time, this was a denial of the divinity of Christ. That denial makes it seem like Arianism would be shocking to most Christians, and yet Arianism was incredibly popular in both the Western and Eastern halves of the Roman Empire. The Council of Nicea wasn't even the first attempt to stop Arius. In 321 CE, the Bishop of Alexandria convoked a council of 100 bishops to denounce Arius and his doctrine, yet he continued to gain followers until he was driven out of Egypt. Then he went to Palestine and recruited more followers.
You
It was
already
at this
know
point
it,
that
dude. You already
Constantine
know what's
made
up.
like Gary Oldman in The Professional and decided to hold the biggest council ever.
Bring me everyone. What do you mean everyone?
Damn, this nigga tweaking.
We're living in a tough time, full of trials.
This nigga got the hollering out of nowhere. Fuck you going through?
Possibly the most famous name among the bishops in attendance was Nicholas of Myra. If that name sounds familiar, it's because St. Nicholas is who many credit as the original inspiration for Santa Claus.
Oh, okay. So now we done figured out some other shit about all this shit. It's a lot of shit going on right now. It's a lot of shit that they got going on, man. Packed off up in here, man. That's what I'm saying. So the nigga who is the real Santa Claus is linked to all this shit too. That's some crazy shit.
Story goes, while Arius vigorously defended his views of the Trinity on the council floor, Nicholas got so upset by the repeated heresy that he stood up, strode across the room, and decked Arius cold across the face. It was illegal to strike anyone while in the presence of the emperor, and as told, Nicholas was stripped of his episcopal office and placed in jail. The legend continues when that night, the Virgin Mary and Jesus appeared before Nicholas and freed him of his chains and returned him to his bishop's robes. Upon hearing about this, Constantine reinstated Nicholas as the Bishop of Myra. Even if we ignore the parts about the ghosts of Mary and Jesus busting St. Nick out of jail,
Joanna
it's the assault
Jackson.
of
What's up,
Arius'
Joanna?
truth. Unfortunately,
Joanna?
there's little evidence to support the
Joanna?
attack. Some accounts of the council list Nicholas among the
Joanna?
attendees, but not all of them do.
Okay.
In fact, the ones that include him date from much
Jayana?
later, and the story of the punch doesn't show up until about 1,000 years after the council. Additionally, the original version of the tale says he hit an Arian, not necessarily Arius himself. It's still a great story. The bishops at the Council of Nicea wanted to make a definitive statement about their denunciation of the Arian belief that Jesus was subordinate to God the Father. What resulted was the Nicene Creed, the first clear and universal statement of Christian belief ever officially issued by the Church. According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, the creed was altered a few times to respond to newly arising forms of Arianism.
Oh, yeah?
But most were variants of the statement from Nicea.
You need to go
The version
live with that
stuck
one.
was confirmed at the Council of Constantinople in 381 CE. Many elements of the creed exist specifically to counter Arianism, like this passage, for example. I believe in one Lord Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God, and born of the Father before all ages, God of God, light of light, true God of true God, begotten, not made, consubstantial to the Father, by whom all things were made. The key ideas here are that Jesus was begotten, not made, that he was true God of true God, and that he was consubstantial to the Father. Being consubstantial was a term at the crux of the arguments at Nicea. Consubstantial means that Jesus was made literally of the same stuff that made God. So were the Father and the Son created from the same stuff? Nicea says yes, as do most modern Christians, given that the Nicene Creed is still used today in Catholic, Orthodox, and most Protestant churches. While the Arian controversy was the major issue addressed by the First Council of Nicea, it wasn't the only one. Believe it or not, another big topic discussed by the bishops was determining when Easter took place. At face value, this might seem like a silly topic, but do you know what date Easter is next year? Can you name it without Googling it? You can't. You can't, liar. In the beginning of the faith, the date of Easter had been tied to the Jewish observance of Passover. However, the bishops of Nicea didn't want their holy day to be beholden to a Jewish holiday because, anti-Semitism. So while the church had originally held Easter on the Sunday nearest Passover or even on Passover, the new rule was that Easter had to be held on a Sunday and could not be on Passover. So the attendees settled on the most logical solution. Easter would be held each year on the first Sunday after the first full moon after the vernal equinox. You're not wrong if you're thinking that sounds more like some sort of Wiccan business than Orthodox Christianity, but here we are. The process for determining these dates in advance is a formula known as computus, and though that sounds like a Legion of Superheroes villain, it's actually the Latin word for calculation. As a result, Easter always falls somewhere between March 22nd and April 25th. Well, in the Western Church. Eastern churches still use the Julian calendar, which is a topic for a whole other video. Arius wasn't the only troublemaker that the early church had to deal with at the Council of Nicea. The bishop Meletius of the city of Lycopolis in Egypt was causing problems of his own. Meletius was a high-ranking bishop, second only to Peter of Alexandria, and this is what made his misconduct and insubordination so troubling. Conflicting sources make it difficult to discern exactly what Meletius' main crime was, but the central issue seems to be that he was unwilling to accept back into the church Christians who had renounced their faith under torture by Roman persecution. While most bishops were eager to accept those who repented of such action, Meletius refused. Even after being denounced as a disturber of the peace, Meletius continued to gain support. He ordained those who followed him, even from outside his own diocese, which was absolutely forbidden. At the time of the Council of Nicea, the Meletian Schism, the name given to his breakaway church, included dozens of bishops and priests. They called themselves the Church of Martyrs. The council tried to make peace with Meletius by allowing him to remain bishop, but demanded that he quit ordaining outside his diocese. It ultimately didn't work out. His followers sided with the Arians and existed as a separate sect until the 5th century.
Hiscox is America's #1 online business insurer. We customize online policies in minutes. Ready to live your dream? Purchase your policy today. Hiscox.
The results of the Council of Nicea included Arianism being denounced in no uncertain terms. Arius started the council with 22 bishops in his corner, but ended with only 2. What's more, Arius and his remaining supporters were exiled to Illyria in the Balkan Peninsula. Then, Constantine ordered that all of Arius' writings be burned, and that anyone found with copies of his texts be put to death. Those severe actions were seen as necessary for the church to keep from self-destructing at a pivotal point in the history of Christianity. One of the long-lasting consequences of those decisions by the council was that it set a precedent for the emperor to use his authority to establish and enforce church rulings. If Constantine could declare that people must believe a specific concept about the nature of God or be put to death, then that has startling implications. The council marked the first full swing of the pendulum for Christianity. In a handful of years, it had gone from a forbidden and persecuted religion by the empire to one inextricably intermingled with it. It built a society where the emperor himself ruled based on theology, and ruled over theology as well. This tangling of church and state would subsequently be at the heart of European history for centuries, and pitted popes and kings against each other in their quests for power. A commonly repeated factoid about Constantine the Great was that he was the first Christian emperor of the Roman Empire. Constantine is well known for his dream-inspired conversion in which a Christian symbol led him to victory in battle. Following that came the Edict of Milan, which made Christianity legal within the Roman Empire. This rule led to the building of some of the most famous churches in the world, including St. Peter's Basilica and the Hagia Sophia. Constantine also, of course, convened and oversaw the First Council of Nicea, a pivotal moment in Christian history. However, by the time of the council, Constantine hadn't even been baptized. This, despite his professed conversion following his prophetic dream some 13 years prior. Constantine would not, in fact, be baptized until he lay on his deathbed in 337 CE. believing it was best to be forgiven of his sins as emperor all at once. There is actually a great deal of evidence that suggests that for most of his life, Constantine worshipped the sun. The Arch of Constantine, a triumphal monument that stands to this day, was built after his official conversion, but bears no symbols of Christianity. It doesn't even have the Cairo symbol to which he attributed his famous victory. Instead, only tributes to the god of the sun can be seen. It's more than likely that Constantine didn't truly care about the theology of the Council of Nicea. He only sought peace. Even if the Council of Nicea established a centuries-long link between church and state and was overseen by someone who likely didn't actually care about the religious controversies at hand, at least it succeeded in wiping out the Arian heresy and the Meletian schism, right? Actually, no. In the years after the council, Arianism crept its way back into popularity to the point that Constantine even started to tolerate the Arians. In fact, the priest who baptized Constantine on his deathbed was Eusebius of Nicomedia, an Arian. After Constantine, there were a number of Arian emperors, including his son Constantine II and Constantius II. Soon enough, the tide turned, and many of the bishops who had excommunicated Arius were themselves excommunicated, including Athanasius, who had been Orthodoxy's most stalwart defender of the council.
My nigga Con Artist the Third. Like, what these niggas really on? But we see what's going on about this Council of Nicea. It's people who trying to, you know, make it look one way. We know what came out about it, and I think that that's the closest to what it is now. There's some brothers, a video I seen, I want to look at them too, just to get their viewpoint of it.
Check this out. The next one, and we'll get it put up in a second, is what really happened at the Council of Nicea. That's one that y'all alluded to a bunch of times. Describe what it was and what exactly happened.
Okay, so what certain proponents of Kemet will try to say, they'll say that the Bible was invented at Nicea, Christianity was created at Nicea, and then Jesus was invented at Nicea. So they were real busy at Nicea. What really happened was there was an argument between two African men about the essence of Jesus. So you had Athanasius, who was Orthodox, whom understood that Jesus was begotten and not made. That's why when you read the Nicene Creed, it says he was begotten and not made. Then you had Arius. Arius believed that Jesus was a created being. Now this is important. These two African men are arguing about Christianity, therefore it couldn't have been invented at Nicea. They're arguing about something that already exists. 12 years prior to the council, Constantine issued the Edict of Milan. The Edict of...
Now, if anybody, if you come out, the video when I broke all this down, I went into all that about the edict, about when they made it legal, about the wars, about all that good stuff. So
Milan was to stop the persecution again of Christians, because again it already existed and it was growing fast after his resurrection and the apostles and people testifying about him. So what really happened, there were two African men, one Orthodox, the other whom we consider a heretic. And so Jehovah's Witness doctrine is a form of Arianism. That's a form of Arianism. And that's what happened there. So the idea that Christianity was created is just historically inaccurate. The Bible being created, again, that's historically inaccurate. That was another council, and the Bible wasn't created at this council, but they wanted to distinguish against the Apocrypha versus the inspired books, and that was the Council of Carthage at 397. So we gotta, again, this is history. So even if you don't believe in Jesus, you can't make up stuff. What happened there historically was two African men talking about the essence of Jesus. That's what happened at the Council of Nicea.
Good. Also, you could bring up too, just for people that want to say Christianity started there, ask them what about the Edict of Milan, which is 313.
Christians was already being persecuted at that time. They already had books and doctrine at that time. So if...
And to be honest, Yeshua wasn't a Christian, he was a Essene. You know, Christianity came afterwards. This is like, in your time period, you're what you are. Say you pass. Okay, say, I'm going to use Martin Luther King or somebody for example. So, in his time period, he couldn't have possibly practiced Martinism because he was Martin. So, bam. What it'll be is an example, say he died, which he did. And people worshiped him, which they do. They got pictures of Martin Luther King in their crib, all kind of shit. People quote his shit, all that good shit. So that would be Martinism. You see what I'm saying? But I'm going to let them go and explain it their way and let them do their thing. We got one viewpoint from the other people. We got a viewpoint from the brother people, okay?
Being persecuted at that time, how could it just start in 325? And we've already had canonization going on since 150 AD amongst the African church, or which was soon to be the African church.
Okay. Yeah, and I mean, originally we do have to admit that Constantine did have a motive with the Council of Nicea, and his motive was to unify the empire. He preferred Arianism because Arianism had grown hugely in the eastern end of the Roman Empire towards Turkey and different places like that, which is modern day Turkey. And so he actually Athanasius, the short, dark-skinned, round-nosed dude, was standing defending the faith as it pertains to what we talked about yesterday, hypostatic union, two natures of Christ, and Jesus' relationship with the Father, whereas Arianism wanted to promote Jesus being a created being. That was more easily believable than Jesus being deity, and so he thought the spread of the empire would happen more quickly with a less difficult doctrine to believe. And so, and that's where you get the writings of Eusebius and him being sort of included in the church, in the fathers. But what happened is, and a lot of people don't know, that actually Athanasius got exiled from the empire by Constantine, even though orthodoxy won at the he didn't. In other words, he wanted the empire. He didn't really care about orthodoxy. So orthodoxy ended up winning, which meant that there was going to be a minority view. And a heresy, he wanted the heresy to spread because he wanted the empire to spread, not because he wanted the heresy to spread, because it was easier to believe. Therefore, when he made Christianity the religion of the empire, he wanted to allow heretical doctrines, not biblical Christianity, to necessarily pervade it. And so what actually happened at Nicea is it was a fight for orthodoxy. When that fight for orthodoxy won over with that group, Athanasius ended up getting exiled from the empire, but later he returned out of exile as a bishop.
Ain't that some shit?
Right, next.
So, in other words, it was political. Old boy tried to romanticize the shit, make it sound all, you know what I'm saying, flying, all that cool shit. That was real tight. But at the end of the day, it was political. And I mean, we already know that because it was wars that came after it. Wars that go on till right now. Yeah, real shit. So, we're going to continue. Now, we're going to get into the image. That popular image, man. And the person behind the image. The image of Cesar Of Balgeria. So shit. Let's get into it. Yeah, cold-blooded motherfucker too. Real talk. On another level. In real life.
It's Ollie from History Profiles. In today's video, we will be going to the 15th century Rome, and we'll be...
Educational purposes only, YouTube. Don't, you know what I'm saying, play a hate on me, you know what I'm saying? Don't you make hate on me. You feel me? Don't you hate on me.
delving into the affairs of the rich and powerful members of the church, and it's perverse to say the least. In particular, I will highlight and tell you the story of the Pope's son, Cesare Borgia. First, let's have a look at his early life. Cesare was born in either 1475 or 1476 in Subaico, which is a town in the metropolitan city of Rome. He was the illegitimate son of Cardinal Borgia, who was commonly known as Rodrigo Borgia, who later became Pope Alexander VI, and his Italian mistress, Vanosa de Catani. The Borgia family originally came from the Kingdom of Valencia and would rise to prominence during the 15th century. Cesare would grow up wealthy, having everything a young man at the time would want: a fine education, access to horses, swords, and other luxury items. He would study law at the Studium Urbis University in Rome. Due to his father's high rank in the church, he became the Bishop of Pamplona at the age of 15, and then the Archbishop of Valencia at age 17. When his father, Rodrigo Borgia, ascended to become the Pope, Cesare was made a cardinal at the age of just 18. Does this act mean that there was institutionalized corruption within the Catholic Church? Shouldn't the rank of cardinal be appointed to the most pious and deserving of men? Nevertheless, Cesare was made a cardinal at such a tender age. He had power, and power corrupts. You see, Cesare was a cardinal, but he was the opposite of a godly man. He was described as daring, determined, handsome, power-hungry, and completely ruthless. He would do anything and crush anyone who stood in the way of him accomplishing what he wanted. Murder, bribery, and fornication came naturally to Cesare. His associates were also not godly men, to say the least, and it is said, when his brother Giovanni was made into the captain general of the army of the papacy, that Cesare was furious and jealous of his brother. Cesare would have much rather been a man of action, as was his nature, instead of a man of the cloth. In 1497, Cesare's brother Giovanni was assassinated under mysterious circumstances. Rumour would spread that Cesare killed his brother, and this would give him the chance to finally become a military man and stop going against his own nature by working as a cardinal. In addition to this, both Cesare and Giovanni were having an intimate relationship with their younger brother's wife, Sancha of Aragon. So this murder...
Man. These niggas wildin' a bit. So these niggas were fucking on their little brother wife. Man. She was keeping it all in the family. Serving it up.
Could not only have solved the resentment over the fact that they were sharing their brother Geoffrey's wife, but it also paved the way for his military career.
Bit it up, gang.
There is no concrete proof, however, that Cesare did indeed kill his brother Giovanni. On the 17th of August 1498, Cesare became the first person in history to resign from his post as a cardinal, which he did in order to go after his career in the military. On the same day as his resignation, King Louis XII of France named him Duke of Valentinois, a title of nobility. He would then travel to France to marry Charlotte d'Albret, the sister of the King of Navarre. Cesare already had powerful connections, with his father being the Pope, but now he was favoured by the King of France and the King of Navarre.
Damn, that's the picture right there. That's the picture. That shit crazy. You can't even see that shit. I mean, you can if you try hard, but I mean, damn. There you go right there. There you go. Shit crazy.
He had many cutthroats and other people sinister in nature at the ready. Cesare and his father, Pope Alexander, would now try to re-establish control of the Papal States and bring back the glory days where the Catholic Church was all-powerful and had complete influence over the countries and monarchs of Europe. In addition, they wanted to carve out a cemented Borgia state in northern Italy for Cesare. Cesare was then appointed the commander of the papal armies, with a huge number of Italian mercenaries, 300 cavalry, and 4,000 Swiss infantry members. He would soon be sent by his father, Pope Alexander, to capture the cities of Imola and Forli, who were ruled by Caterina Sforza, an Italian noblewoman. Cesare made quick work of invading the two cities and keeping them under his occupation. He would then return to Rome, triumphant. The Pope and his son Cesare made a very good team. Pope Alexander played his part as a sort of politician, planning and weighing up the outcomes between the actions that he thought should be taken, and his son Cesare was the man of action that made it all happen. Cesare wasn't only a former cardinal, a general, and a soldier though. He was also an assassin who didn't mind getting his hands dirty. A number of political assassinations have been attributed to him, but one abhorrent crime of his was the murder of his brother-in-law, Alfonso, the second husband of his sister Lucrezia. Alfonso was at the top of the steps of St. Peter's Basilica when he was attacked.
This story is extraordinary, especially if it's true, and it all started in the desert.
By hired killers and was stabbed in the head, right arm, and leg. However, when he was about to be finished off, Alfonso's guards managed to fight off the cutthroats, and Alfonso would live to fight another day. Yet, as he was recovering from his wounds in a chamber of the Borgia Tower, Micheletto Corella, Cesare's best friend and personal assassin, entered his room with a group of armed men and strangled him until he stopped breathing. This assassination still remains a mystery, even though it seems to have been carried out by Cesare's men. At the time, I am sure the culprits were known to everyone, but they were in positions of power and were untouchable due to their status and wealth. It is rumoured that Cesare also had an incestuous relationship with his sister Lucrezia, and this may have been a motive for the murder. It is said that Cesare had bursts of demonic activity. He would stay up all night, receiving and dispatching messengers for unknown and mysterious tasks. He would also sometimes do the complete opposite, and at moments of unaccountable sloth, where he would remain in bed for days, refusing to see anyone. He is said to have been quick to take offence and slow to forgive. In June 1502, Cesare would set out on another military campaign. He captured the walled city of Urbino and the town of Camerino. He next planned to conquer Bologna, but his own commanders, fearing his cruelty and growing power, set up a plot against him. Many of Cesare's troops would abandon him, and he would be forced to fight defensively instead of his usual aggressive style against his enemies. However, with the use of the papal funds, he was able to rebuild his army while dealing with the traitorous commanders. Cesare would arrange a reconciliation with his former commanders and troops, only to then arrest them and execute them. The supremacy of the Borgias, however, would soon come to an end. In the midst of Cesare planning his conquest of Tuscany, he would receive news that his father, Pope Alexander, had died. At the time of him receiving this news, it is said that he contracted malaria and was gravely ill, but managed to recover. After the death of his father, the Borgia family's deadly enemy, Giuliano della Rovere, became the Pope and tricked Cesare into supporting him by giving him large amounts of money and the promise of a continued papal backing of the Borgia policies. However, as soon as he was elected as Pope, he would go back on his word, and Cesare would fall into disgrace, no longer knowing his place in the seemingly new world. In the end, Cesare was imprisoned in the castle of La Mota, a medieval fortress in the province of Spain, after he was betrayed by one of his close friends. While he was in prison, his lands were retaken by the new pope. No doubt, the pope bribed his friend, Gonzalo Fernandez de Córdoba, with some sort of reward. However, Cesare managed to escape his imprisonment, still being the resourceful man of action that he was. He made his way to Pamplona, the capital of Navarre in Spain, and was welcomed to court by King John III of Navarre. King John would make Cesare a commander of his army, and he would go on one more expedition. Cesare captured Viana, a town in Navarre, but he couldn't take the castle by force, so he set up a siege. He had the castle surrounded, but in the early hours of the morning, on the 11th of March 1507, an enemy party of knights fled the castle during a heavy storm. Cesare was outraged at their cowardice, and being the brazen, hot-headed man he was, he gave chase. After riding hard on his horse, he found himself alone, with none of his men beside him. The party of knights, seeing that he was alone, trapped and surrounded him. They then put him to the sword and stole all of his clothes, leaving him naked as a sign of disrespect. They even famously took his mask that covered half of his face, as it was disfigured due to syphilis. Cesare Borgia was left to die in the storm, naked and disgraced.
Damn, that shit
The
crazy.
life of Cesare is one of sin. He became a cardinal young, and one would think that it would have encouraged him to become a godly man, but the Vatican and the Catholic Church were full of schemers,
It's the person
killers,
with the image behind,
and of
so
course, sinners. Cesare was feared and hated by the common people for his blatant disregard of his religion, while being in a high-up position in the church and being the son of the Pope himself. To the people, he killed his brother, ordered the killing of his brother-in-law, had an incestuous relationship with his sister, slept with the wife of his younger brother, and was involved in other depraved activities that we will never know the true extent of.
Man, we gonna let him slide. So that's the motherfucker who, that's the person who the image
My name is Dr.
is
Pam
based
Blackman.
on.
I'm a
That's his
chiropractor
image.
here at Love Your Healthy Life. I've been in practice
So,
for 22 years.
That nigga was wild as
Jesus
hell.
based on the Egyptian god Horus. Many mysticists claim Jesus never existed. It was just a copy of the deity Horus. They claim there are several parallels which prove this,
Damn, this nigga
such
low.
as Horus was born of a virgin Isis on December 25th in a cave. A star in the east announced his birth, and he was visited by 3 wise men. He had an earthly father named Seb, which translates to Joseph. He was baptized by Anup the Baptizer. He had 12 disciples. He performed miracles, like walking on water, and raised El-Osiris from the dead. He gave a sermon on the mount, was crucified between 2 thieves, buried for 3 days, and was resurrected. He was called Christ, Anointed One, the Way, the Truth, and the Light, Messiah, Son of Man, and many other titles that are applied to Jesus. So it is pretty clear the story of Jesus is just a myth copied from the deity Horus. Well, that might be true if any of these claims about Horus were in fact true. The fact is, most of this nonsense is a lie, and we can't find it anywhere in ancient Egyptian literature. First off, Horus's mother Isis was not a virgin, but was actually married to Horus's father, Osiris, and she is shown in depictions as a falcon hovering over an erect Osiris. There is no reason to think Isis was a virgin, as most Egyptologists do not even claim this. One legend even has Isis sleeping with the dead body of Osiris, and Horus was conceived from that. So there is no reason to think Horus was born of a virgin. There is also no evidence Horus was born in a cave, let alone a manger. James Fraser says Horus was born in a swamp, and there is no evidence of a star in the east or 3 wise men. Let's also remember in the Gospels, it doesn't say 3 wise men visited Jesus. It says an untold amount of magi visited Christ after his birth, but it never says 3. As for December 25th, this also cannot be confirmed. One reference has Horus being born in November, whereas Plutarch says Horus was said to have been born around the winter solstice, but there is no evidence for the 25th in particular. Also, Jesus was never confirmed to have been born on December 25th. It was just an estimate based on early calculations, but never confirmed or written in the New Testament. Seb was never said to be Horus's earthly father. In fact, Seb was a god, the god of the earth, or the earth itself, and there is no linguistic connection to the name of Joseph. Some references say Seb was the father of Osiris, not Horus. There is no Egyptian scholar who has ever heard of Anup the Baptizer. This was just made up out of thin air by mysticists. Horus was never said to have 12 disciples. Some legends say he had 4, and some just say he had an untold amount. Horus did perform miracles, but that would be expected from any deity. As for walking on water, there is no evidence of this. He also didn't raise Osiris from the dead. Osiris didn't come back to life, but remained in the underworld to serve as god of the dead. Plus, there is no evidence Osiris was ever referred to with the prefix El. This is just not true in Egyptian mythology. There is no evidence Horus gave a Sermon on the Mount, no evidence he was crucified, let alone between two thieves, no evidence he was buried, and no evidence he was resurrected. He was never called Christ, Anointed One, the Way, the Truth, and the Light, or any of these titles commonly associated with Jesus. Modern mysticists have simply lied, or lack any ability to do accurate research, because all of these supposed claims about Horus simply do not exist in Egyptian mythology. And until these mysticists provide actual original source evidence for these claims, there is no reason to believe them. So since that is the case, there is no evidence Jesus was a myth based on Horus.
Alright. So after seeing that, I'm going to go into it a little more. So we know that. So now we're going to go and we're going to check it out. So, according to the Jews, they believe that his name, which is in the Talmud, you can look up the Talmud, read it. The version has been translated. So, and they say there are 4 main passages in the Talmud that are alleged by some to discuss. Of course, y'all can see this for yourself. The story of Jesus' life and death. What we will do here is to analyze closely these passages and see the reasons one may or may not attribute these stories to the life of Jesus. We will also look at another 2 passages that help us identify our protagonists. We will quickly realize that there are great difficulties in stating that any of these texts refer to Jesus. We will see that a large number of historians and Talmudists have addressed these issues and have concluded that either none of these passages refer to Jesus, or that they refer to a proto-Jesus, whose life was later obfuscated by the theology-motivated rewriting of history. Alright, so basically, Yeshua Ben Panthera, right? So, as far as they concerned, he was just a Jewish, you know what I'm saying, just any old regular person to them. So Ben Stoddard was supposedly the person who came up with the theory. They saying that they basically discredited him, but they saying that my fault. Ben Stoddard was supposedly his daddy. No, this was who they were saying was him. So, bam, let me go back up. There's so many fucking names, man. That's why I be like trying to get down to the bottom of the shit. All these damn names. At the end of all these names, the truth gonna come out. So this is what they saying, that his mother name was Miriam, which is Mary, a variation of Mary, and that his father's name was Paphos ben Yehuda. Okay. Paphos, the son of Judah, because there wasn't no J's in that time. Of Yehuda, because there wasn't no J's at the time. So Miriam, okay, so they were saying there was a man named Ben Stoddard, and he practiced black magic, and that his mother's name was Miriam, and she was also called Stata. And his father's name was Pt.1 Yehuda. So Miriam, this is in the Talmud. This is what the Jews believe. You know, because they say that he was a Jew and all that. So we're going to break down all of it. They're saying that Miriam had an affair with Pandera. That's why they say that he is Ben Pandera, which means the son of Yeshua ben Pandera. So bam, they say Ben Stata was born from that. So some historians claim that Ben Stata, also known as Ben Pandera, was Jesus. That's why you get the name Yeshua ben Pandera. His mother's name was Miriam, which is similar to Mary. But see, check this out. All of this translates, and this is what we all putting together as the parallel. But we're gonna get into another historical thing. It's gonna make even more sense, because it's still it lets you know that even though names is changing, you can see what's going on. Excuse me. Additionally, Miriam was called a woman's hairdresser. So this is what they say the problems with that is. Mary Magdalene was not Jesus' mother. Neither was Mary a hairdresser. Well, that ain't even what they saying. That's off the wall ass type shit. Jesus' stepfather was Joseph. Ben Stata's stepfather was Pt.1. With the names, that ain't the thing. It's how it was put together. It say that Talmud Berakhot 61b has Pt.1 Yehuda being captured and killed by Romans along with Rabbi Akiva. So Rabbi Akiva lived during the second half of the first century and the first half of the second century, and he died around 134. If Pt.1 Yehuda was a contemporary of Ben Akiva's, he must have been born well after Jesus' death, is what they're saying. So he couldn't be his father. But you got to think about it like this: it's gonna be a lot of misconceptions because it's different people telling the story. It go from oral to words to people stealing it and making it their own and a bunch of different type of bullshit. So Yeshua in the Talmud, in the Sahedrin. So we went through number 1 and number 2, and then we're going to get back to the video. So Yeshua ben Paraka. The king killed the rabbis and went into Alexandria of Egypt, where there was peace. Shimon ben Shetach sent to him from me, Jerusalem, the holy city, to you, Alexandria of Egypt. So her husband remains in this man's midst, and he sits forsaken. Left and arrived at a particular inn, and they showed him great respect. He said, "How beautiful is this inn?" Which also means, the word Akshania, and it means innkeeper. So Yeshua said, "Rabbi, she has narrow eyes." So the man was basically giving the lady a compliment. He said, "She has narrow eyes." Saying to him, she was a wicked one. This is how you. He said to him, "Wicked one, this is how you engage yourself." Yeshua ben Paraka said, sent out 400 trumpets and excommunicated him. Yeshua came before him many times and said, "Accept me," but he paid him no mind, basically. So one day he was reciting, and he came to him again, and this time he was going to accept him, right? And he signaled to him, come chop it up with me. And he threw a brick. Did he throw a brick at that man? Hold up, calm down. He was going to accept him and signal to him with his hand. So he was repelling him, though. He went, hung a brick, and bowed down to it. My fault. You taught me that anyone who sins and causes others to sin is not given the opportunity to repent. And the master said, practice magic and deceive and lead Israel astray. Whoa, what kind of shit is that? So this in the Talmud. But we see it was a real person. You know what I'm saying? They got history of them. Yes, you know what I'm saying? Detail. They got dates. That's what we're trying to prove about dates. So they trying to compare them and put parallels to people, but I can have an actual date about me, and you can make up some shit. You feel what I'm saying? So that ain't what we're saying. So now we're gonna deal with Yeshua ben Yosef. Okay, boom. So check this out. Yeshua ben Yosef, later mistranslated to Jesus Christ, was a first century pretender. This is how they feel now. This is opinion. It's cold shit to say. Pretender to the throne of Israel. He later inspired a religious movement, believing him to be the Messiah and with his true father unknown, saying that he was the son of God. So bam. Now we get more and more into the shits. Let me light this blunt up real quick. Okay, so we checked the parallels out, so we're going to get into this video here.
Lemonade Renters Insurance covers your $1 million t-shirt, $1 million sunglasses, $1 million MP3 player, and the other stuff you spent your 20 Bitcoin on in 2011. Protect a lot.
This is the sun. As far back as 10,000 BC, history is abundant with carvings and writings reflecting people's respect and adoration for this object. And it is simple to understand why, as every morning the sun would rise, bringing vision, warmth, and security, saving man from the cold, blind, predator-filled darkness of night. Without it, the cultures understood, the crops would not grow, and life on the planet would not survive. These realities make the sun the most adorned object of all time. Likewise, they were also very allowed them to recognize and anticipate events which occurred over long periods of time, such as eclipses and full moons. They in turn cataloged celestial groups into what we know today as constellations. This is the cross of the zodiac, one of the oldest conceptual images in human history. It reflects the sun as it figuratively passes through the 12 major constellations over the course of a year. It also reflects the 12 months of the year, the 4 seasons, and the solstices and equinoxes. The term zodiac relates to the fact that constellations were anthropomorphized or personified as figures or animals. In other words, the early civilizations did not just follow the sun and stars, they personified them with elaborate myths involving their movements and relationships. The sun, with its life-giving and saving qualities, was personified as a representative of the unseen creator or God. It was known as God's Son, the light of the world, the savior of humankind. Likewise, the 12 constellations represented places of travel for God's Son, and were identified by names, usually representing elements of nature that happened during that period of time. For example, Aquarius, the water bearer, who brings the spring rains. This is Horus. He is the sun god of Egypt of around 3000 BC. He is the sun anthropomorphized, and his life is a series of allegorical myths involving the sun's movement in the sky. From the ancient hieroglyphics in Egypt, we know much about the solar Messiah. In fact, the term horizon comes from the phrase, Horus is risen, denoting the sunrise. Hours are also derived from Horus, as it is the sun tracked throughout the day. Also, the term sunset comes from this mythology, as Horus's evil brother was known as Set, and Set was the personification of the darkness. In fact, every morning Horus would win the battle against Set, while in the evening Set would conquer Horus and send him into the underworld, hence the term sunset. It is important to note that dark versus light, or good versus evil, is one of the most ubiquitous mythological dualities ever known, and is still expressed on many levels to this day. Broadly speaking, the story of Horus is as follows. Horus was born on December 25th of the Virgin Isis Mary. His birth was accompanied by a star in the east, which, in turn, 3 kings followed to locate and adorn the newborn Savior. At the age of 12, he was a prodigal child teacher. At the age of 30, he was baptized by a figure known as Anup, and thus began his ministry. Horus had 12 disciples he traveled about with, performing miracles such as healing the sick and walking on water. Horus was known by many gestural names such as the Truth, the Light, God's Anointed Son, the Good Shepherd, the Lamb of God, and many others. After being betrayed by Typhon, Horus was crucified, buried for 3 days, and thus resurrected. These attributes of Horus, whether original or not, seem to permeate many cultures of the world, for many other gods are found to have the same general mythological structure. Attis of Phrygia, born of the Virgin Nana on December 25th, crucified, placed in a tomb, and after 3 days was resurrected. Krishna of India, born of the Virgin Devaki on December 25th, with a star in the east signaling his coming. He performed miracles with his disciples, was crucified, and in turn resurrected. Dionysius of Greece, born of a virgin on December 25th, was a traveling teacher who performed miracles such as turning water into wine. He was referred to as the King of Kings, God's only begotten Son, the Alpha and Omega, and many others. He was crucified and in turn resurrected. Mithra of Persia, born of a virgin on December 25th. He had 12 disciples and performed miracles, and upon his death was buried for 3 days and thus resurrected. He was also referred to as the Truth, the Light, and many others. Interestingly, the sacred day of worship of Mithra was Sunday. The fact of the matter is, there are dozens of virgin-born crucified saviors from all over the world who fit these general descriptions. The question remains, why these attributes? Why the virgin birth on December 25th? Why dead for 3 days, the inevitable resurrection? Why 12 disciples or followers? To find out, let's examine the most recent of the solar messiahs. Jesus Christ was born of the Virgin Mary on December 25th in Bethlehem. His birth was announced by a star in the east, which 3 kings or magi followed to locate and adorn the new Savior. He was a child teacher at 12. At the age of 30, he was baptized by John the Baptist, and thus began his ministry. Jesus had 12 disciples, which he traveled about with, performing miracles such as healing the sick, walking on water, raising the dead. He was also known as the King of Kings, the Son of God, the Light of the World, the Alpha and Omega, the Lamb of God, and many, many others. After being betrayed by his disciple Judas and sold for 30 pieces of silver, he was crucified, placed in a tomb, and after 3 days was resurrected and ascended into heaven. First of all, the birth sequence is completely astrological. The star in the east is Sirius, the brightest star in the night sky, which, on December 24th, aligns with the 3 brightest stars in Orion's belt. These 3 bright stars in Orion's belt are called today what they were called in ancient times the 3 kings. And the 3 kings and the brightest star, Sirius, all point to the place of the sunrise on December 25th. This is why the 3 kings follow the star in the east, in order to locate the sunrise, the birth of the sun. The Virgin Mary is the constellation Virgo, also known as Virgo the Virgin. Virgo in Latin means virgin. The ancient glyph for Virgo is the altered M. This is why Mary, along with other virgin mothers, such as Adonis's mother Myra, or Buddha's mother Maya, begin with an M. Virgo is also referred to as the house of bread. and the representation of Virgo is a virgin holding a sheaf of wheat. This house of bread and its symbol of wheat represents August and September, the time of harvest. In turn, Bethlehem, in fact, literally translates to house of bread. Bethlehem is thus a reference to the constellation Virgo, a place in the sky, not on Earth. There is another very interesting phenomenon that occurs around December 25th, or the winter solstice. From the summer solstice to the winter solstice, the days become shorter and colder. And from the perspective of the northern hemisphere, the sun appears to move south and get smaller and more scarce. The shortening of the days and the expiration of the crops when approaching the winter solstice symbolized the process of death to the ancients. It was the death of the sun. And by December 22nd, the sun's demise was fully realized, for the sun, having moved south continually for 6 months, makes it to its lowest point in the sky. Here a curious thing occurs. The sun stops moving south, at least perceivably, for 3 days. And during this 3-day pause, the sun resides in the vicinity of the Southern Cross, or Crux, constellation. And after this time, on December 25th, the sun moves 1 degree, this time north, foreshadowing longer days, warmth, and spring. And thus it was said, the sun died on the cross, was dead for 3 days, only to be resurrected or born again. This is why Jesus and all the other sun gods maintain this crucifixion, 3-day death and resurrection concept. It is the sun's transition period before it shifts its direction back into the northern hemisphere, bringing spring and thus salvation. However, they did not celebrate the resurrection of the sun until the spring equinox, or Easter. This is because at the spring equinox, the sun officially overpowers the evil darkness, as daytime thereafter becomes longer in duration than the night, and the revitalizing conditions of spring emerge.
This is how we load the mix-ins into Mix-In! Funny, we make fun.